My bad.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Chris Folk here, Chris Folk Podcast, episode 72. Today we got a special guest here. Steven Rose, you're a sinus football player. Maybe we'll use his likeness to create a monster podcast that competes with my boy Joe Rogan. Steve-O.
Yo.
What's up, bro? So this is what we got going on today. We're out working this morning. Steve-O's been helping me here. I used to coach Steven in high school. He's in college at your sinus. You want to tell me what you're studying and all that quick and go through the rundown of where you are in school?
I'm going into my senior year at Ursinus College. I'm a health and exercise physiology major. I'm also getting a minor in coaching with the goal to be a strength and conditioning coach at some level, whether it's high school, college, or maybe the private industry, who knows?
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
So Steven, I coached him in high school for, I think maybe a year I didn't coach, but anyway, 3 or 4 seasons in high school, and then he's been helping me around the farm here these past couple years, and we kind of transitioned from being like nothing but a day laborer, weed whacking and doing all the dirty work around here to
worker.
Yeah, now he's a white collar guy where he sits around drinking iced coffee and coaching kids up. But anyway, Steven was like, he was always one of the hardest working kids. For example, I think being a little bit undersized probably worked into that. But like he was super tight, say zero flexibility at all. Steven decided, what do I do as like a 16, 17-year-old kid? Start working on the flexibility, put in some work, stuff's greatly improved. I always tell people this, and I'm not kidding, that he was probably the hardest working kid that I've ever coached. I just wanted to ask right off the bat here before we get rolling here, where do you think that stuff came from? Like that type of mentality here? Because I did, like, you know, you were at a public school and you just see a variety of kids that come through there, and you see some people that have a willingness to like work hard and sacrifice, others don't. Where do you think it came from you?
I personally think it came from my parents. Just, it was never really something talked about within my family, but I just think there was always a really good example set of do everything with a purpose. And I mean, you go until the job's done. Like, I mean, I never realized like there was a thing like the 9 to 5, because my dad would be, he wouldn't come home until like 7 at night because he just had stuff to get done. And then my mom was just like a go-getter and just would constantly be getting stuff done, running her family's business. So I definitely think they just set a really good example for me to subconsciously follow.
Yeah, nice, man. And you're looking to kind of continue that, because right now you're working like a madman. Steven's helping me out here a lot. I don't know how many hours a week, but 15 to 25 range. You're also working with Lehigh's strength and conditioning program. What sports teams are you working with there?
So far I've worked with Lehigh football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and their wrestling team.
Mentality-wise, difference between men's basketball and women's basketball. What do you see? Any differences?
No differences, and I think that's already one of like the biggest misconceptions in sports, is that girls athletes are just as tough. And I mean, there's here and there might be the girl who's...
They're probably tougher, potentially.
Yeah, potentially is right.
We don't want to give them...
Girls have
their ego too much.
Well,
they might be tougher than us males.
Girls got to overcome a lot more, I think, because of all the ideas of it's not as cool to be a female athlete.
Yeah, and it's slowly shifting. Probably I think the generation above me. I mean, I think probably when my mom was growing up, they really didn't even have sports. Like, maybe some team had a basketball, but they were playing some weird rules of like, half court only, or like 7-on-7 something, or like softball, they would have an extra player out on the field, and like just these different weird stipulations for girls athletics. And some of that stuff still exists when you see like girls lacrosse versus boys lacrosse. But I think now it's more accepting for girls to even like lift weights and stuff. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
High school girls in here doing stuff that like there's some adult males that can't even do, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then what about the mentality between a sport like men's basketball, wrestling?
That's interesting, because toughness-wise, I would say they're both equally tough, but in different ways. Because men's basketball and the wrestling athletes, they have different kind of challenges to overcome, because a men's basketball athlete at 6'5", 6'6", whatever, their body's never really in the it's already at a mechanical disadvantage to be doing things like jumps and sprints and squats and stuff, while wrestlers are actually one of the toughest people I've ever met, though, because they're always, I don't know, they starve themselves, they love the pain, it's interesting just to see the kind of stuff that they overcome.
Yeah, it's kind of grind away always.
Yeah, for the fun of it.
Especially at that
I don't know.
level. I mean, Lehigh's a Division I program, and I think historically they're probably a top 25 team. So you got some of the better kids in the country, and they also have that the training center there too, where I think you probably get some guys floating around there that compete at the like the international level.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Yeah, I think it is a different world of the mindset's totally different. You know, they just beat themselves down. Unfortunately, sometimes into the ground where they can't recover appropriately. But yeah, I don't know what that comes from. I don't think, like, I talked about this once before. I think you need, like, people like, man, some of these wrestlers, like, you go into college, these guys are getting into fights and stuff all the time, and you're like, man, I don't know what's going on here. But I think in order to succeed at a high level, you got to have something going on.
Yeah.
Like,
you got to be different than everybody else. You can't be the average athlete.
Well, I think, too, I think it was an episode where I was talking about this. Charlie Francis was a track coach in the 80s, and his main pupil was Ben Johnson, who he won in, like, 1988, but he failed a drug test afterwards, and Carter Lewis got his medal, set the world record for the 100-meter. And Francis said when they were looking for long-term, like, kids growing up, he wanted that kid to have, like, a high, almost like be a little bit volatile, a little bit of a temper, because that means that their, like, nervous system was firing fast.
Yeah.
Like, they were a little bit hot-headed. And I think I started thinking about that with wrestling too, where like you need a little, like these kids need to have a little bit of, like they can't sit still. They got a little fire to them.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's at a young age too you start to see that difference. There's probably siblings here that you've seen that there's groups of siblings that say they play the same sport, but you see different mindsets and mentalities, and some are better suited for one sport, others might be better suited for another. But
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. I think it starts at a young age. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? I mean, even there's some wrestling's a crazy sport, man.
Yeah, you gotta be willing to compete in literally everything. Like, I don't know, some of the wrestlers come in and they race going down the steps to like the next room or something like that. That's just like every little thing they're doing.
That's interesting.
They're wrestling like in between sets of squats and stuff with each other. Just they have this.
It's not what their coach wants them to do. It's just what they're doing, pushing each other around.
They're just messing with each other on like a cement floor or whatever. And
I wonder what that is. I definitely know that person. I've seen that. They just
I don't know. They just love to compete.
Scrapping.
They love to come out on top and win. So, literally any second of the day, they can prove they're better than somebody else. I think they're all for it.
It's one of the oldest sports ever, Steve-O.
Yeah.
Read these old Greeks, Roman type book. I mean, it's wrestling. It's always there.
Yeah, human nature right there.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe we were born to scrap and grapple. You know, there's this cool story. We were in Milford, PA, and this guy, Gifford Pinchot, was this conservationist with, I think, FDR. Which Roosevelt did it? No, it was Teddy Roosevelt. And so Pinchot was the first conservationist in the country, and they started saving these parks. This French dude, he's got this, like, castle in, like, right past the Poconos. And they would, like, just, you know, get together on the weekend, the president and the head of conservation, and they would wrestle and box.
Nice.
Just right in the front yard.
Nice.
And, yeah, you don't see that enough. Like, you get two guys boxing in the local park, you'll probably get the cops called.
Good way to settle something. I don't know. Maybe
No, it's for fun. It's recreation.
Okay,
Like
well,
some people go golf and smoke cigars. Back in the day, they were wrestling and, you know, boxing each other, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Might have to bring that back a little bit, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe, hey, this Sunday, what are you doing?
yeah, might see us scrapping around here. Anyway, so college stuff. What's the most thing you learn about at Lehigh? Like, what's a big takeaway from that? Like, how about comparing Lehigh's program, Division I think in every sport, right?
Yeah.
And then you're signed as Division III school in Pennsylvania. Big differences, the good, the bad.
I'd say the most important thing I learned is that you have to kind of meet your athletes where they're at, because a Division I athlete has naturally probably a bunch more capabilities than a Division III athlete might have. There's a lot more range at the Division III level, though. There's some kids that show up to the weight room with 7 years of experience lifting already, and there's some kids who have never lifted a weight in their life, which still kind
Could
of
be
happens.
the reason why they're at the Division III level, right?
Right.
Like if they would maybe train a little bit, maybe they could have reached some greater heights. What about that person? What's their mentality like? Are they open to lifting weights then in college, or are they just like against it and that's why they never did it?
It's actually wide range, because there's been the people who just, their high school didn't have a weight room. They didn't really have a program that, I mean, like I was fortunate to have coaches that were saying like, hey, make sure you're lifting and running and stuff, but maybe they just didn't have that. And yeah, maybe there was just some kids who just played football for fun.
Yeah.
and then
We're pretty good at it. And we're like,
right,
I don't really need
right,
to train
and
for it.
didn't have to do much else. But now, it's the standard, the norm. Once you get to college, is hey, you have to be lifting weights and you have to be running fast and training in the off season. So
Yeah, we also get weeded out.
Yeah,
and I
right.
think so. I guess two things here based off of that to comment: nature, nurture type stuff, right? You have genetic stuff. You have these Division I guys or girls, so there's always the genetic side of things, and then there's like the the work ethic side of things. Do you see? Basically, what I want to know is like, do you see a lot of people that have both of those in the kids that you're working with? And is it the same kind of ratio where, is it different at all with the Division I, Division III?
honestly, I think I see a lot more nurture at the D3 level and a lot more nature at the D1 level, because there's a lot of people who
Genetically gifted at the Division I level that might not work as hard, or might not have the same mentality?
I'm sorry, maybe I misworded that then. I
Nature
think,
would be like,
I think people, I
where
think
you
the
were
D1
born.
D1 athletes are a lot more hardworking, but I think that might have been just because they had no other option other than they had to work hard, and maybe that's what got them there. And I mean, yeah, they genetically already, there's a lot of kids there that probably would have ended up Division I, whether they, I don't know, whether they were lifting heavy or not, and maybe that's something that's a tough pill to swallow for someone like me who's, I mean, I've trained, I don't know, for the last 7 years of my life, 8 years, and my ceiling's only so high compared to some of these other people.
Yeah.
But then there's a bunch of, at the Division III level, it's crazy because you have such a wide range of, maybe this person could have gone to a higher level school if they had something a little differently, whether it's they worked a little harder, it had a different mindset, because
A little bit more height?
even
that
yeah,
type of stuff? Like, hey, this kid's a beast, but he's 5'9". Like,
right. Yeah, there's definitely those things that go, like on my team, we have a running back who's 5'2", and he's one of the hardest workers, greatest guys out there, and he's really good. But I mean, you just don't hear 5'2" running backs at the Division I level. So,
No, not at
but
all.
he's managed to do what's best for him and built himself up to his highest level because of his work ethic right there. So,
Oh, so it's like getting to the highest level you can with what you're given.
yeah, that's definitely, I think,
Yeah, that's maybe
something
it.
I've really stumbled upon, is that, realistically, I'm not going to the NFL. I'm not going, it probably wasn't even in my, future to even think about going Division I. But if I take a step back and look, maybe I shouldn't even be at a Division III. Like, maybe I was lucky to get to play in high school, but because I was able to reach, closer towards my potential, that got me to play Division III football. So I just think it's really important to reach your highest level that you can achieve.
Yeah, that's great actually. I like that, Steve-O. Everybody's ceiling's different.
Right.
Yeah, all right. Best thing about working at Lehigh, though? Like most eye-opening experience this year?
Most eye-opening experience this year, that's a tough one. I would just have to say I really enjoy this. So they have multiple strength and conditioning coaches there. There's Eric Marcosi, the director of strength and sports performance. There's Dom Carlinio. I think that's how you say his last name. Sorry, Dom, if I said it wrong. He's one of the assistants. He's full-time assistant strength coach. And then there's Owen Breininger and Dylan Baxter, and those are two part-time assistant strength and conditioning coaches, and they all have their own way of coaching. And I thought one of the coolest things that I kind of ran into was that it's completely okay that if you don't coach the same way. Everyone kind of has their own way to coach, and what's important is that you coach in your certain way, because I like to think on one end of the spectrum is Eric Marcosi, who he's just constantly bringing energy to the table. He's loud. He's really good at motivating and everything. And then somewhere on the other end is Owen Breininger, who, not that he doesn't bring the energy, but he sometimes connects with the athletes in a little bit of a different way, more of a calm and relaxed method of, you know what, hey, let's take a step back and let's look at this. And they all understand that they coach differently, and they'll be responsible for a certain set of teams, but they all work with each other's teams because they understand collectively as a team they can train their athletes a little bit better, because maybe Eric gets through to some athletes a certain way, and maybe Owen gets through to a different athlete a better way, or maybe Dom is the best person to communicate with certain athletes. So
Yeah.
I just was a huge fan of seeing that. I feel like there's a huge stigma being a strength and conditioning coach that you need to be the most energetic, loud, obnoxious guy out there, and
Yeah.
I've learned that's completely false, and that you just need to be more true to yourself. You can't be someone you're not, because the athletes will look right through that and they'll laugh at you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much the best advice, I think, for anything. It's like, just be who you are and try to be the best version, reach your ceiling again, almost. You know, you go to these games, like we went to see Notre Dame versus Virginia Tech a couple years ago. I don't even know if you were in high school, you might have been, but we lost a game, and Marisa and I had tickets for the next week, and we go there, it's like November 18th, freezing rain, like 30 degrees, miserable weather, and the strength coach is out there with shorts and a t-shirt on. You know, there's like that.
Yeah.
That's because like that guy.
That's not for me. That's not for me.
That's the guy that's getting the attention, not the guy that's probably being, you know, more reserved and just getting his kids to produce at high levels and not really caring about anything really in that regard in terms of being tough and
I mean, that could be
getting
looked at
attention.
in two ways. Maybe that guy's never like that, and because he does that, he brings a whole another level to the table of like tough guy mentality. 1 week out of the sun surprises his athletes, and it's what they need. Maybe it's something he does all the time, and they're desensitized
maybe
to
there's
it.
15 other guys with their
Right,
short sleeves on
and
in 5-degree weather.
Now you just got half your team thinking they're a bunch of wimps because they're not matching it. So it's all about how you can kind of change the game there,
There's
I
a
think.
story. I think the Chicago Bears versus the Bears were the team in like 86 or whatever that year was, 85, 86 season.
85, I think, yeah.
And then here comes the San Francisco 49ers. They're starting to come together. And I think the Bears beat them one year. The next year, this is the story I believe, and if I get it wrong, who cares? Somebody could fact check me. But Ronnie Lott they go to Chicago, and Ronnie Lott was a nut. It's freezing. I don't even know what the temperature was. I don't know if it was like an ice bowl type game, if it had like one of those names to it. And Ronnie Lott's out there with like a cutoff on and no sleeves, and then the Bears were in like the tunnel looking out there, and we're like, holy crap. Like the Niners had this vibe, like this West Coast team that was a little bit maybe soft, and they were like a pass, spread the ball around, you know, blah, blah, blah. They weren't like a smash mouth team, say. And then Ronnie Lott's out there just kind of setting the tone, and apparently his pregame behavior affected some of the Bears players. Like, holy crap, this dude's nuts. So there is something to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's Ronnie Lott.
Yeah,
That's him.
well,
you know,
the
you
same
can't
guy.
get Joe Montana is not going to do that.
Ronnie Lott is the same guy who would cut his finger off to play in the Super
Allegedly.
Bowl. So
Allegedly.
I don't know if it's allegedly. I think.
I don't know what the
it's
story is,
actually
though. I think the
factual.
story's fabricated somehow, where people think he literally just chopped it off.
Oh,
and then
well,
went
yeah,
and played.
no,
Like,
no.
I don't know what the full story is. I
I
did
think
know
he
it at one
shattered his
point.
pinky, and then
Totally destroyed.
he could he could get surgery and miss the rest of the playoffs or Super Bowl, or he could just cut it off and keep playing. And
Chop it.
you know, I know the story because back when I was, I think 11 or 12, right, hurt a finger.
It's a great time, man.
And
Totally.
one of my coaches made sure to let me know about the Ronnie Lott story because I had a big youth football game
course.
that weekend.
Big youth game.
Yeah, and he,
Big youth
He
game.
let me know, you know.
Is that coach still around? Is he still coaching youth?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
He wasn't serious, but I learned the story that way, and
Yeah,
it was
it's good, man.
good to learn.
Did you play then? You probably played after hearing
Yeah,
that
I think
story.
I did play.
All right, so we got the Lehigh situation. Post-college, you're thinking, you don't know yet, right? You might
Not
follow
sure.
that
Gonna kind
path.
of figure that out. Gonna get my master's. Don't know if I included that. Looking to become a graduate assistant somewhere. Study to get my master's in exercise science.
And then graduate assistant would be assistant strength coach, football, or does it matter?
Depending where it is, it could be a strength and conditioning coach that I actually have my own team that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
It could also be I'm an assistant strength and conditioning coach, which I actually really like the idea of because I'm still able to learn from someone else running the show, and while I'm studying, I'm still able to get that experience side, which is actually totally different. The education part of things and the coaching side of things, that's actually another thing I'd say I learned from being here and being from the Lehigh side is that, you know, everything you learn in the classroom, it's great, but I mean, when someone's lifting, I'm not going to explain to them sliding filament theory, how a muscle works. I have to make sure that their squatting technique is proper, and that
Yeah.
if they don't understand it, I have to build my communication skills so that they can understand me. That's like the whole, it's not just strength and conditioning, it's coach. Coach is at the end of it, and that's the other half of being able to communicate with athletes properly. And getting through to them.
But yeah, and I hear that, and I hear like, there's all these certifications out there, and people that I worked with that have been doing stuff for like 5, 6, 7 years are like, I already know this stuff. Why do I need to get a certification behind it? And it might not sound like it matters, and this is not. I think what you're doing, you need to know. You need to like work towards something, and you need to like commit months of your life or whatever it is to like study something. And yeah, you might not apply the sliding filament theory to it, but there's still something to that learning process that like you can't just be like, well, say you wanted to get a certification like a CSCS, for example, and one day you don't have it, the next day you do have it. You're not a different person,
Right.
But you did work towards something. You were able to accomplish something. You studied your butt off for it, and yeah, you might not ever use that information, but I think you need to put it.
Proof.
You
It's
need
like
to
a
know
standard that a certain amount, and I think
Yeah.
it kind of things need to more gear that way, because how many people are out there not knowing what they talk about? They're just like, hey, I saw this on Instagram.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
When I tell you too, something about getting, say, a certification or whatever, you have to like recertify. And if you're just the person that doesn't want to chase these things, if you don't want it doesn't matter if you have like CSCS by your namesake, but like if I want to re-up every 3 years, I have to study and I have to do things. I have to go to workshops and I have to do these CEU things and I have to take quizzes, and you have to do stuff. And you might end up learning about this FMS, this functional movement screen, because you could get 2.0 CEUs and that's what you need. And you're like, oh crap, this is kind of cool. And then you can start applying
Right.
it. And I think it's just starts the path of like a lifelong learning process where, not that you're in college forever, but I know you just keep chasing education. And the more you learn, like you'll go to these conferences saying you might only get 1 or 2 things out of each presentation, and eventually that might only be like you might only get 1 new thing the whole day, but it's still 1 new thing.
Right.
Every book you read, if you get 1 thing, like, all right,
That's
cool.
a huge thing in this industry, I think, is the growth mindset of constantly trying to learn.
Yeah.
I see a lot of just, what are you doing to get yourself better? Like, are you reading?
Well, you tell that to the athletes.
Yeah.
You tell it to the kids. And if you're not doing it in your own life, it's like, it's a whole like just being true to who you are and being a role model and, giving them an example, or like even when you talked about the different personalities, it's like, it's okay. Like you could tell your kids, like you could be a leader and not be that loud guy.
Right.
Or telling people to study certain things and then you're not spending any time doing it either.
Yeah.
It's like, just
Kind of practicing what you preach is
I think so.
a huge part to buy-in, even, because why would your athletes want to do what you're doing if you're telling them to do it and then you're doing something else on the weekend, or
you want the kids to come in at 6 a.m. or something like that to
and you're
to
showing
work
up
out.
late then or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, you're like, oh man, I slept like crap, or you're up till telling them you're up to 12:30.
Right.
But meanwhile, you're telling them they need to sleep better, but you're not. You're out
just-
doing whatever.
Yeah, why would they want to do that if the person who's telling them to do that doesn't even do it?
Yeah, I think it's important. So I think as a coach too, you don't have to be the world's fittest person, but you need to have like some priorities in check. And like,
Yeah.
if you're working with young kids especially, like, hey, this is a lifetime thing. Like, yeah, it's cool. Maybe you could go to college and play sports, but if you don't just stop like
Right.
trying
Yeah.
to better yourself in anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talking about the young kids though, I think you were going to go there before, potentially. You brought it up a few weeks ago, but just helping out this summer. I mean, we have had some camps with like kids 8 to 12, and then you got the Wednesday night group. How about that kind of experience, working with the youngsters, like 10 and under?
I'll tell you what, nothing has prepared me more for coaching at, the high school and college athletes than coaching 8 to 12-year-olds, because they're a group that there's such a wide range of mentality, and mentality is the whole thing with coaching of, if they don't want to be here, how can you make them want to be here?
Yeah.
Or if they do want to be here, how can you maximize their potential? And so it's been absolutely awesome working with them, because number one thing is you kind of build a relationship with this kid, and they look up to you, and you're their coach. And it's kind of where they understand, or they learn that this person wants me to get better. And maybe it's the early introduction to what a growth mindset is. And obviously an 8-year-old's not going to think, hey, I need to get better every single day. But if they're showing up one Wednesday every week and they can hang on a rope for 5 seconds, and then the next week maybe they get 10. Over that lifelong process, they'll begin to, maybe they'll hit the first milestone of improvement. I mean, the other week we had a kid climb the rope for the first time since he's ever been here in 6 months
Which
or
has
so.
been the winter for sure. It was definitely
Right.
cold in here when they started up, so good 6 to 8 months. The rope is a great learning tool, man.
Yeah, and I mean, that's another part of things that I was able to learn through sports that I now want other people to learn is training instills confidence in people.
Yeah.
Because that kid who couldn't climb the rope and now can, he has better self-esteem probably because he's like, you know what, I can climb a rope. Maybe I'm physically strong.
And I know I could work 7
Right.
months towards something and
Yeah,
accomplish it.
and
They don't just give up after the first failed attempt.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of makes me wonder about mental toughness and stuff. That's different than the conversation on 8 to 12-year-olds because, I don't know, there's a whole stigma of people doing challenging mental toughness and speed training, and they should not be the same thing. But I just think doing hard things over long periods of time is...
Like killing people, is that what you're saying?
Right, they're
That's not
killing
mental
people
toughness.
because
They don't know
like
any
running
better.
sprints at unreasonable work-to-rest ratios because it'll make you mentally tough, when in reality it's just destroying your body and you're not getting faster.
Yeah.
And you're not really getting tougher because you threw up and all that stuff's not fun. But I just think the idea of accomplishing things over a long period of time and challenging yourself, like these 8 to 12-year-olds are like, oh, I did 2 push-ups one day, now I'm doing 10 push-ups a couple months later. Just things like that they realize, you know what, like there's a reason why I'm doing all this. And you ever hear about that study that was talking about, it was they said you could have a marshmallow now to a young child, or they say you could have 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes if you don't eat it now. And it just looked at like that long-term gratification and
delayed gratification.
Yeah.
They followed those kids throughout their lives. Do you know that?
Yeah. And then they went on to see
Yeah.
what they did with their lives. And I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was I forget what the actual statistics were, but like
Same, but I mean, the gist of it is that the kids that were able to delay gratification at a younger age were more successful. We can put it in quotes because I don't know how they define success, but they're more successful as adults. And yeah, that's important, right? I mean, how about the one kid that you talked about? His name begins with a J. Remember last week he was not feeling things, and at the end of the week.
Oh,
we
yeah. And
so
I mean,
4 days, guys. We had 4 days. Monday I ran it by myself. Steve-O was at the beach, freaking getting a suntan and whatever he was doing. And Monday,
I was driving home that day. 11-hour drive.
11-hour drive by himself. We're driving. His buddies didn't want to drive.
Ungrateful friends.
This guy, man, he didn't want. He was not feeling it. Not a lot of effort. Come Thursday, what happened, Steve-O? He's tearing it up, right?
He's improved, and he was smiling when he was doing it too, because he knew he had gotten better since 4 days earlier in the week. And maybe it wasn't necessarily the actual, adaptations of his body. He wasn't physically faster.
Yeah.
But he was actually faster because he was trying to be faster, and he was getting up with better effort and stuff. And he was happy with seeing, like, he wasn't coming in last in races because he was trying all of a sudden. And, maybe then the light bulb goes on. Hey, maybe I should try when I do things.
Yeah, how about it?
I mean, it takes people a little bit to learn that, I guess. But if you can learn that at age 8 instead of 15 when you really need to, because, I mean, how many people just coast nowadays?
Well, that idea, and like talking about the rope climb is a thing too, and even like doing chin-ups. Because if you put an 8-year-old on the bar there and you have them try one and they just kind of do this little soft attempt, you're not going anywhere. So it's like, if that's how you want to try, you're not going to get better.
Right.
Like, you need a full commitment to get up the rope, to
Yeah.
pull yourself up, to do a chin-up. Like,
You need to decide
be
beforehand.
100% in on the attempt, and if you're not, you're never going to get better. And it's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, and we'll try to nudge you in the right direction, but it has to be an honest effort. And I shared, too, in that last podcast that I did the other day, you talked about what your Lehigh coach, like your mentor over at Lehigh said the most fulfilling thing as a coach is for him. And then I said that one day when I came here, you guys were still up here, and like, hey, Coach Chris. Like, Chris was coming up and it was like, Coach Chris, man, I'd finished my broad jumps and I did my bear crawl. And I'm like, perfect, because, 2 days prior, I'm like, hey, you don't have to, like, you just have to just finish, man. You don't stop halfway. Just try, and it's not going to be great today, and that's fine. Just we're getting a little bit better. And by the end of the week, he was so proud of himself because he was able to jump off 2 feet and land on 2 feet. And he's a tall kid for his age. He's probably not comfortable with moving his body around. He's just a bigger kid for his age group. Like, he looked like me and him looked like we were peers, and he's standing next to other kids his age, like a good foot and maybe more than a foot taller than him. And but anyhow. Just these little things, man. He was pumped about it. Now we have a positive training experience that this kid could hopefully not forget, and maybe continue to work hard towards things as he gets older.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if he were to never pursue sports again, I could care less because he's developed this sense of confidence in himself that, maybe he's going to reach such a higher level of success because he learns early on about hard work and stuff. And like, maybe he doesn't need to follow sports, but he builds in a training regimen to his lifestyle. And he continues to even if I like to look at my life as, what's one thing I got better at today? I mean, and maybe that's not realistic for however old he was to begin looking at, but I mean, it's just like if he starts that growth mindset early without thinking about it, he's just to the fact that he couldn't do a bear crawl. We were doing bear crawls as a group, and he would crawl kind of on his knees a little bit for the first 4 or 5 steps, and then he would get up and walk slowly, speed walk out of the group so he wouldn't be seen. And then I told him, like, you're never going to get better at this bear crawl if you never practice it. And a week later, he's doing a bear crawl from one end of the field to the next, and it's like, look at this right here. This is the same exact thing you need to do everything with, just trying to get a little bit better.
And with that, for example, if you're a coach and you let that slide, that kid misses out on a lesson. If you're a coach and you talk to this kid in a way that he might not respond to.
If you humiliate him in front of his peers,
yeah,
he's never going to want to do that again.
He's not going to want to improve, which I think is an issue. And, I think if you're just able to nudge them towards kind of making the decision on their own to, like, go ahead and pursue it, I think that's probably the ideal thing for long-term growth. You can't just, give rewards and all this other stuff all the time. It's like they need to have some sort of internal, intrinsic motivation. And we were able to kind of get him to that point just over the course. I mean, he was here for 2 weeks.
I think it requires some empathy, being able to place yourself in their shoes and think, what does this person need to kind of help them lean towards a certain direction? Like what are they looking for? Why? What is their reason for not completing this rep right here? Is it because they're getting embarrassed because they can't do this in front of everyone? Is it because they really just don't want to be here? And you have to be able to then assess and say, you know what, like here's put aside in your head, here's my plan with how I'm going to go after this because, I really want everyone to succeed who I'm training. And, maybe I just need to explain the whole idea of getting a little bit better each day. Maybe I just need to explain, do a little work now and we'll have fun later. And then they'll see when they, if they're doing sharks and minnows and they're not winning, maybe they'll take your drills a little bit seriously. And just things like that to just try and make connections for them, because sometimes they just need to not hear it, but instead physically experience failures or the successes.
Yeah, man, that's good. You talked about the growth mindset a lot. So the opposition of the growth mindset would be the fixed mindset, where it's kind of like blaming external things for what is happening to you instead of, being responsible for anything that happens. And so the fixed mindset would be like, I wasn't able, I got a bad grade because the teacher doesn't like me. Whereas the growth mindset would be like, maybe I didn't study hard enough. I got this bad grade, good. Now I know that however I prepared for this thing is not enough, and I need to put in an extra hour every night of the week or whatever it may be. So you got the fixed mindset that just kind of accepts things the way that they are, might blame some external things, whereas a growth mindset would be just looking to expand and become a better version.
Right.
Which brings us to Jocko.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So
let's get a premise going here.
All right.
Back in the day, I want to be the guy. Like, I've done some weird stuff, I think. Like, I remember, I don't know if you were in high school, but we'd have double sessions. And I know, like, Mike Kane and those guys were in school, and they were like, what, a couple years older?
2 years older than me, yeah.
I'd be, like, running. Barefoot running was coming around. I just read this book, Born to Run. I'm like, you know what, let me see how this feels. Just started running, like, a little bit on the grass out there. So I'm like, this weird football coach, I think. These guys were probably making fun of me because I'm running around barefoot in the grass.
Yeah, I don't think I was you were my coach when that happened. I missed that.
So think about being a 15-year-old senior coach with no shoes on running on a football field. Then I'm telling these guys about Jocko. Or no, fast a little bit more. I broke down the history of the Moravian Church. So this is what happens at football practice. There's a lot of dead time. Warming the quarterbacks up. It's like, all right, we got 5 minutes to get your arms loose. This is like, what are you going to do, stare at each other? Or are you going to talk, right? So we start talking. I tell them all the weird stuff that I took a tour of a Moravian church. I'm telling this kid about Count Zinzendorf and all this other stuff where, Nobody knows who the hell Count Zinzendorf is. But anyway, this kid wrote a paper on it then. I'm telling these guys about extreme ownership.
Yeah.
6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I
But
think.
guess what? Stevie
yeah, it
Rose is reading Extreme Ownership right
man,
now.
so-
Or Brandon Holland and all these other guys that I told about years ago. They're starting to. I think they're starting to get it, man.
I had a friend who Brandon Hall, who you coached, and he told me he was the first one who probably told me about it actually, and he said he's like, yeah, you ever hear of extreme ownership? And I was like, what the heck is that? And he said, it's like if you throw a pass and your receiver drops it, you gotta let them know it was your bad, and you gotta throw the ball a little differently. So yeah, this is
That's a
rough misconception already.
That's a high school.
but-
That's maybe a high school guy definition, maybe. I
Yeah.
think there's more to it.
Yeah, and there absolutely is. So me and my friend would joke about it for maybe a year or two, and then finally
Yeah.
I got into reading, and I'm kind of in and out of reading. I'll read for a few months, and then I'm out of it for a few months, and just kind of working on splitting up my time a little bit better. But one of the first books I read was Extreme Ownership by Jocko.
Yeah.
First books I read this year. I read a couple before then, but it's probably one of my favorite books I've read because there's a lot of books about teamwork and leadership and everything, and a lot of it has to do with how you handle when you're working with other people. Like, this is what you should do as a team, and this is what you should do as a group. Extreme ownership is all about you. It's about how you handle things, how you face certain challenges, and yeah, there's built in with how you work with others, but it doesn't matter what the other people do because it comes down to how you handle the situation. It's, you don't blame anyone else. You take extreme ownership for every single thing that goes on in your life. And it's, like, hey, did I do something right? Cool. If I did something wrong, here's what
Also-
I need to do to fix it. Did someone I'm in charge of do something wrong? I need to fix that because I need to make it clear to them, we need to do something a little bit differently. If you're in charge of a team of 40 people, if your team loses, are you going to blame your team, or are you going to, it's your team, so what can you do differently to help your team reach more success?
Yeah. And there was, I was going to chime in there with, like, we talked about that failing that test or whatever, where you don't get the job. Like, his mentality was
Right.
like, good, because now you know what you have to do
Yeah.
next. You fail the test. Good.
Jocko loves the challenges.
Good.
Yeah.
He's got no bad teams, only bad leaders. All right. That's a great one. Where it's like, so there, I guess there's three things. There might be more here as I start thinking about it. There's that idea. No bad teams, only bad leaders. All right. There's also this idea of good, like I mentioned, right? Where if something bad happens, good. Now you have something to learn.
He's got that
You
written
just
on
learned
a
something.
barbell.
Just
On his
good?
workout barbell,
Yeah.
he's got good written on that. So
And then the third thing, what the heck was I going with there? No bad teams, no bad leaders, good. Oh, flanking. So as a coach, like kind of what we talked about already, some people you could come directly at with advice and they could take it, positive, negative, whatever. Other people, you have to kind of come at them at a different angle.
Yeah.
And you have to know and understand that as a leader, you can't just come at people the same way all the time. You have to be a little bit fluid with your approach and you might have to flank an opponent every once in a while. And the book's good because he talks about combat experience,
right. And then he relates
business
it
experience
to the real
almost.
world, though.
Yeah. So it's good. And I'm a little bit behind on my Jocko stuff, but yeah, no, it's good. And I'm glad that I think anybody could get stuff out of this. And it's not about just saying, oh, my bad, I'll fix it. It's actually taking the steps to
Yeah.
fixing it. You can't, as the kid that dropped the pass, say, you see this, my bad. No crap, no
yeah.
crap, it's your bad. You just dropped the ball and we lost, right?
Right.
Take some steps now to fix that. Are you going to put some extra time in trying to catch some passes? Maybe run a better route. Maybe work towards getting yourself more open. Give your quarterback more of a catchable target, whatever it may be, right? But it's putting in the steps to actually fix it, not just saying, "Oh, my bad." That's not extreme ownership. It's
Right.
putting in
The whole
process
book
of
starts
fixing it.
out with Jocko talking about that there's an issue with the SEALs and a friendly fire incident that's a fireable offense.
Yeah.
And, Jocko was sitting thinking, like, how did this happen? How did his platoon or whoever he was in charge of get into this friendly fire situation? And then he said it dawned on him, like, right before his presentation. And he goes out there and he's saying, whose fault is this? And someone stands up, this was my fault, I shouldn't have done this. Someone else stands up, this was my fault. And he goes, no, I'm your leader, I'm
Yeah.
your commander, this is my fault. But he doesn't just say, you know what, this one's on me, might be. He says, this is my fault. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure this never happens. You know, we're going to increase communications. We're going to increase like checks and stuff. So it's all about how he doesn't get fired. He doesn't lose his job, and he's 100% believes it's because he, one, took ownership for it because whether it was his fault or not, it's his team.
Yeah.
And two, he explains a plan that explains why it's never going to happen again. And it kind of builds that buy-in, that belief that, you know what, this person really means it because they listed out how it's never going to happen again. And
It's like, I'm your leader,
right,
but I made a mistake, and I'm man enough to admit it.
humility,
You know?
right
Yeah.
there. Like, you can't have a huge ego, and that goes everywhere in life. You know, obviously huge in the SEALs, but as a strength and conditioning coach, you probably are not going to do everything perfectly for your entire career. And are you able to humble yourself and say in front of your athletes, guys, I messed up here. We should have done something differently, and
Yeah.
here's what we're going to do.
I saw you tell
differently.
the kid that today.
Yeah,
You told young Adam,
Oh,
hey,
man.
my bad. I didn't tell you that this is how we were doing things.
yeah. I mean,
And
it's
that's
just
right.
simple things like that.
He doesn't know. There's things too I have on the board up here about people just not knowing. Like, you know, kids just aren't even like, they
Right.
don't even like warm up. It's like, hey, we're gonna try to deadlift 225 pounds.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna put that on the bar and start ripping. It's like,
And-
what is going on here, guys?
But then
Why are we
whose
getting
fault
hurt?
is that? That's not their fault. That's
No.
then the coach's fault because
Exactly.
the coach needs to communicate with that. Another huge important thing though is you need to believe it though. You can't just say it and blow smoke because
Can't blow smoke.
no one
smoke being
no one,
blown.
no one likes that. But you have to actually believe it. Like you have to sit down and say, you know what, this really is my fault. Because if you just tell someone, you know, this is my fault, and you don't, like, here's what we'll do to fix it, but you don't actually believe it's your fault, you're probably going to make the same mistake again. You have to seriously
Yeah.
think that everything, oh man, one of my favorite quotes, it's all on you, but it's not about you. And I love that just because,
Jocko's
Yeah,
dropping
he
bombs.
drops some
He's
knowledge
a modern day
bombs.
philosopher.
Yeah.
He's up there with like Socrates and Plato, I think.
oh
maybe.
man, he's also got his own energy drink brand, so he a little bit of any
Some
Swiss
of that
Army
go.
knife can do everything.
He makes his own gis
Yeah?
for the jujitsu, yeah.
I don't know what that even means.
The
but-
the karate gi, the white rope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they make them, man.
Really?
Origin
Oh,
in
man.
America. He brought jobs back to America.
Entrepreneur. Wow.
He's
But-
got it going on, man.
Yeah, but I mean, I just love the quote that, you know, like, everything, any success that these people have, that's their success, not yours. Any mistake, though, that's on you. It's all on you to make sure that
Yeah.
these people get to their best potential, but it's not about you. Once they get there, it's not about you. You did your job.
That's coaching, right? It's
Yeah.
Hey,
It's
our team won the championship, man. The guys did great.
It's a
Our
thankless
team
job.
lost in the championship.
Right.
It's your responsibility
Yeah.
as a coach. You know?
Yeah, and I love that part of the
Yeah.
coaching industry. And maybe I still think it's kind of a young, early on mindset there of not too many coaches. Like, you still hear coaches blaming teams, blaming players for
Mm-hmm.
losses. How's that look as a leader when you're standing in front of your team putting the blame on them? They don't like to hear that. They don't want to. Why would they want to play for someone who puts the blame on them? And I mean, yeah, maybe there's situations where, like, I was in a game and I dropped a pass that was intercepted, and, you know, like, as a player, I full on believe, you know, we were down by 1 point, we were driving, I believe that was my fault. But I mean, my coach Sims, he took the blame for that, and I mean, I still believe it was my fault, but if he put the blame on me and he made fun of me or called me out in front of all my teammates, I don't know if I'd even want to continue football. Like, I felt bad enough to begin with. So the fact that my coach would, you know, take that ownership in his team was just a really, I don't know, comforting feeling of, you know what, like, we're going to be okay. Like, we'll regroup as a team and
Yeah.
get after it.
And, you know, when things go wrong, it's like you knew that you messed up. You didn't need
Yeah.
other people telling you, hey, catch the ball. You know,
Oh
it's
my
like, yeah, no
gosh,
shit.
that could
Come
lead
on,
me
kids.
down a whole nother thing of,
Yeah, so.
I had a coach who was like that, and it was the complete opposite of how I think coaching should be done. He's retired now, so, but
What level?
At the college level,
College.
and there was a whole big thing of he loved to tell you what you were doing wrong. Never gave out a compliment though, and I'm not saying that I play sports for compliments, but just if you're catching hundreds of passes throughout the week, you're probably going to make some physical mistakes here and there and drop a ball.
Yeah.
And at the college level, most college receivers know their job is to catch the football.
Yeah.
And don't need that reminder after they drop it that they're supposed to catch it. But I remember there was one time I dropped the ball, and he told me to catch the darn football. And I said, yes, coach. And he said, don't yes, coach me. Catch the football. And I've never been more speechless in my life because it's like, yeah, I'm out here. I'm trying to
Catch the football.
catch the football. I don't need the reminder, but thank you. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, I mean, and now there's a whole different mentality, different culture going on of, physical mistakes happen. But in this new culture, I think physical mistakes are happening less because there's a whole lot less stress every single rep. You don't have that idea of, every single rep is do or die. It's growth together, like grow as a team. And you know what, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, but you're going to reach a higher level if you build past these mistakes instead of harping on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that's great coaching. I never responded to that personally, so I think maybe that kind of paved the way for how I am with people too. But, I just like, you start, if you have a coaching class saying if you look into different psychologies of things like, I don't think there's anything that has a track record of being like an a-hole to people and
Right.
creating this huge behavioral change. Like maybe with some people, there's like that 1%, 5%
Yeah.
where they need that. But like over time, it's like, I don't know, it's just exposing people to hardship, and then hopefully they learn from the hardship,
Yeah.
and try to become better. So that stinks, and that's that mentality trickles down then, and I think there's hopefully a change here. But I see youth coaches sharing like Dabo Swinney, like I'll coach my boys hard and this and that, and it's like yes, he does, but he also has a relationship with
Yeah.
every kid in that locker room. I think anyway. I don't know
Right.
this for a fact. He might have recruited them. He shows these kids that he cares about them.
I hear a lot of good things about Dabo Swinney, so I would believe
But
has
like he
a good
probably shows
relationship.
them every day that I got your back and I care for you and I will coach you hard. All right, that's who he is. But not build the relationships as a youth coach. You don't even know these kids, and you're going to try to replicate what somebody like that does. It's a huge mistake. I think it's actually awful. And plus it is youth sports, right? And so you got to keep in mind what the goal is. But anyway,
I'll
it's
even
being
reference
true-
Coach Krumzak there. I want to bring him into this because, I always thought, right off the bat, like you hear, like, oh, Coach Crum, tough guy, tough coach, whatever. But then, the longer I was there, the more I realized, this guy's treating me. He would say, he treats us as if we were his sons, and I
know his son. I grew up with his son.
Yeah, I truly believe that. He coached us in the way that he felt was best, and he showed he cared about us and he cared about our success, and I truly appreciate because that was his way of coaching.
Yeah.
But he did manage to show, like here's why he's coaching this way, and I don't know, it just without that relationship I might have looked at him like he had 10 heads, but because I understood, he wants the best out of us, I was then okay with it, like the way he would yell at us if we did something wrong and stuff. It's like, well, this is his way of coaching, and he really cares about us.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important though to show that caring for your athletes. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Another quote right there.
Dang.
Another quote right there.
Yeah, that's key, right? You got to build. It's always personal relationships, and
Yeah.
you might not get that kid that we talked about in the camp to do something if you don't care to get to know them first
Yeah.
and learn their name and talk to them a little bit. Like, hey, how was this? How was that? Try to understand them. If they don't want to share, they don't want to share, but you don't stop trying. And then eventually, you build that rapport. You get them to do some cool stuff. They get excited about it, and that's pretty much the whole point of all this stuff, right? Is getting kids, excited and
Yeah.
enjoying just becoming a better person and all that. So.
Well, I remember day one of one of the speed camps, kids like, oh, you're not gonna remember my name, and
You know why though? Probably because all these other coaches and adults don't remember the damn name.
Yeah, I know,
You
and
know?
I made sure I learned everybody's name that day.
You have
and
to.
It was hard, and it was little uncomfortable situations of, hey, I'm sorry, what's your name again? What's your name again? Tuesday rolls around, he goes, huh, bet you don't remember my name. I said, you're darn right I don't, Bryce. And then, can I name drop? Is that
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Who was it?
And it was Bryce. But, and at first you can just see his face, because when I go, I don't, just to try and, throw him off a little bit, just start joking with him and then say his name, and his face lit up. He's like, yo, this guy remembers my name, day two. And instantly builds a little bit of that, buy-in, because he's like, you know what, this guy made it an effort to remember my name when
he challenged you.
Right. Maybe other coaches don't remember his name, and all of a sudden, here's this coach who does remember his name. And I just thought it was good to be able to joke with him and have that relationship of, you know what, like, we can have fun too. We can get better and have fun. And I don't think you can have too much fun if you don't build that relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it's just kind of.
It's the whole top to bottom, the whole roster. It's got to exist for,
Yeah.
Whoever's there. The best kid, like I think Jimmy Johnson, when he was with the Cowboys, he was like this big rah-rah guy giving these speeches. I don't know who it was. Maybe Troy Aikman was like, Coach, we're ready to go. Like, they have, like, the whole team is just Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to give the speech to us, man. We're ready. And he's like, it's not about you guys. It's about those other guys, man. We need to get them amped up. We need to get that bottom half of the roster to play at a level that they're not even sure they're capable of doing,
Yeah.
And if you could get those kids that, don't get attention by their sport coaches or whatever, if you could talk to them, learn their names, get them moving a little bit better, maybe it's just like the snowball, man. It just starts steamrolling. And, fast forward a few years, and it's cool now. I guess I'm at a point, too, where kids are starting to circle back. You saw them when they were youth. Now they're in high school preparing for different stuff, and it's good. And it's like, if you don't care enough when they are young, and to try to teach them, learn them, and just give them opportunities to train,
Yeah.
You're missing out on an opportunity there to, like, change a kid's life down the line. So,
Yeah.
all right, man. I think you want to rip another one of these, and we'll get into some strength and conditioning ideas.
Absolutely.
Like Q&A style. All right.
Yeah.
We're ending this. This was like intro to Steve-O.
Nice.
And we got the basic philosophical stuff here. I'm thinking this next episode, there's some stuff that we'll record another one at some point this week where we kind of just talk about different experiences in the weight room. I mean, I've coached him in high school. I'm going to ask him questions about stuff that he liked that we did back in the day. Because when you coach for a while, you end up doing some great stuff. Then you forget about it, and then 7 years later, like, oh yeah, we used to do complexes every day, or we used to do that and this and that, and you kind of bring it back in. So I'm gonna have some questions for him on different training modalities, things that worked for him, things that he thought worked with others, and maybe Steve will come in and fireball some questions too. Then.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks for having me.
See you, everybody.